Hi everyone, welcome in the new year 2024. We're here. It's been a weird week for me, but that's okay, I don't mind. And today we're going from rain to freezing temperatures. Well, or that's what they say. At the moment, apparently, the feeling temperature is below 0 degrees Celsius, while we are still actually having just a tiny bit above the 0 degrees Celsius. In the meantime, I have been working on a few things for you guys, which I will tell you all about later on. So this last week I haven't been doing any writing, and today is the perfect day to do it. First of all, thank you all very much for your support, because I had to postpone my my live stream from last Friday. It was a tough week. Oh, that's my sign. One moment. That's my sign for my hot drink. Uh, okay, wait. Something's not right. Okay. I will go and grab my drink and turn off the annoying noise. And I have my trusted cup of hot cocoa with me, in a nice mug from the Muirwoods National Monument. I've been to the States a couple of years ago, and of course we went there. It was incredible to see. So yeah, that's one of the mugs I use. Let me put back on my microphone. Yes, that's better. And in the meantime, I'm just going along, as I have no set out plan for today. I just thank you all thank you for joining. You lied to the Discord. You're gonna write some poetry. You didn't lie. You just changed your plans. It's great to see you joining. And thanks again for all your support. And I was I woke up with quite a headache Friday, but that's all gone now, so I can write, and that's a happy occasion. I have to admit, I'm at the moment still in a bit of doubt. Or well, it's not a doubt. I'm going to do two things this year. Or rather, I'm going to do a lot of things, I hope. But as for Tergaenae Chronicles, I talked about this in the Discord community with my fellow writers, of which Jess is one. And the thing is, like I told you guys earlier in other live streams, the story I had been writing of Naja and Najat was originally only the background story. And at some point last year, in one of the last live streams, I decided that it wasn't going to be just a background story. I decided it would be the first story in the series. But I do realize that means that now I need a proper outline to make sure that everything works as it should, and that I have done all my foreshadowing correctly, and that my characters can be where they are supposed to be, and that events are unfolding properly. I mean, we all know that events can surprise us, but that's okay as long as they still unfold properly. And for that, an outline can be very handy. So So I decided to make both the outline and keep on writing, because these characters and my world simply just do not let me get some rest. And if I now only focus on the outline, I think that a certain flutter nymph by the name of Riri and a few other characters might start nagging. And they can really nag, I can tell you that. So to make sure that they don't, I'll be writing down their stories as I go, while also writing the outline on the side. And sometimes it may differ. Sometimes I might write for a while in the outline and write the story on the side, but at least that way I will get both of it done, because this first story that needs to be written, and from there I can properly go on, but the outline also needs to be written, especially because the outline is for the whole series. And I mean, it's not going to be an easy thing, I do know that, but at the same time it is important to make it, and to make sure that I have everything that I need. So that's the plan for this year. Write my series and hopefully finish at least the new book 1 in the series, and write the outline. I want to finish the outline this year, hopefully in the first half of this year. Hopefully, but that's really, I mean, I have no idea if that's going to happen, but really hopefully before the next big NaNoWriMo event, which is Camp NaNoWriMo, of course, in April. I really want to have my outline finished by then, and I do realize that it won't be an easy feat, but I'm gonna try anyway. It's going to be a challenge, but it will be a fun challenge. So that is what I have in mind, at least for now, for 2024, as far as writing goes. And the fun part is, I think that the fact that I know that it will be a series, and that I know that Tergaenae is a bigger world that can have multiple stories in it, and not only the story which I'm writing now. It also encourages me to write, and to write this outline, and to keep on writing the story, because there is so much more to discover in Tergaenae, and with the characters that are in Tergaenae. And I mean, it might happen that once this series is finished, a whole new series will come up. It might be a sequel to this series, kind of like what's his name, Terry Brooks, I think, did with the Tergaenae Chronicles, and other books. You really see. Oh, the pigeons are back again. My apologies. I was kind of distracted. But like Terry Brooks did with the Tergaenae Chronicles, write a series and write the sequel as a new series, but a series that follows the first series. I have a certain idea in mind for the Tergaenae Chronicles, and I have no idea if I will manage to do that, but we'll see about that. That's something for far away in the future, not something that I need right now, that I need to think about right now. Right now, I just need to think about the first series, and that is the most important thing. So, how are you guys doing? Because I'm talking about a lot about myself in about Tergaenae Chronicles, but I'm also very curious to know how you guys are doing, and if your New Year's Eve and Christmas holidays and other holidays that you celebrated, if that all went according to plan, and if you had a great time. I hope you all did. I know I did. It was fun, and I had a few. I don't have them with me right now. One moment, I will get them because I had a few very nice gifts and as Christmas gifts. One moment. Okay, so there's one that's not a Christmas gift, but I think it was amazing. Look at this. This is what I got from my writing friends here in the Netherlands, who've been with me for years already. And it's a wizard with a unicorn and a dragon, and I mean, there are so many details. It's so incredible. And I got it as a surprise gift, so I was extremely happy with it. And thank you guys. It was such a wonderful gift, and it's going to have a proper place in my new workplace. And as a Christmas gift, I got these bookmarks. Oh, grab it. This one, it's a nice feather. It's a metal feather, and I mean that's a great bookmark to use. And I got a keychain with the Tree of Life, and I'm so happy with these gifts as well. So thank you, Mum and Dad. These are such incredible gifts, and I mean it's so wonderful to have family and friends who understand that my interests have changed, so that I'm more into. Oh, one moment. That I'm way more into fantasy these last few decades than I was before, than I was as a teenager. So yeah, that's amazing. And I got this book, Gamer Girls, which is also a very important book. It's about 25 women who built the video game industry, and of course, as a wannabe video game designer, this is also an awesome gift to get. So those were my holidays, or rather part of my holidays. I also went to the zoo, to one close by here, and it was wonderful. I had a wonderful time with my brother and my sister-in-law. So I was very happy. I had a great holiday, and last Monday I just had to get last Tuesday. Monday was New Year's Day, or New Year's Day, of course. But last Tuesday I had to get back to work, of course. Nothing to do about that. So that was the end of the year for me, and even though I didn't manage to write anything after New Year's Eve, I mean, I did the New Year's Eve live stream. I did write close to 500 words back then. I wasn't quite happy with what I've written, but well, you know what? At least I'll just get along with it. I'll have to rewrite, possibly rewrite what I have written so far, because I'm really not happy with it. But that will come at a later time. Right now, I just need to get it all out, and from there work on and see how I can work this whole background story that I have written so far into the outline, and how I'm going to connect it all with the first book I had already written, or I already had rewritten, I should say, and see how I can move on from there. And what I expect that will happen is that the the cuts, the divisions that I originally made, I expect that those will change. So that is also one of the reasons that I decided to, one, make the outline for the entire series this year, the first part of this year, and second, to first write draft 0, as I explained in my Scrivener tutorial, and how to set up your fantasy project in Scrivener. My draft 0 is what I want to write for the entire series, and once that's done, then I will divvy it up, and then I will have a better idea. I might even do that after I've written draft 1, because draft 1 is more the part where I really pay attention to the story flow. So I might even wait until that, and then divvy it up and see how many books I will actually have and how things flow, etc., etc. But then I will have written the entire series, and I will know what I need to foreshadow, and what surprises I wrote into the stories and that I need to fix in earlier parts of the story. So, because I mean, I know myself, so I know that there is a very good chance that later on I will write things that I did not expect, even though I've written an outline. So I will write things that I did not expect, and those things will have to be foreshadowed, will have to be worked into the earlier part of the stories. I know that because I've done that with the former first book. I had written an outline for that one, and I managed to surprise myself with things that were happening that I did not prepare for and that I did not see coming. And I realized later on that I would have to adjust things and to make sure that things would be properly handled. And of course, especially now that Naja and Najat are in the story, a lot of things will change, because now they are the first two main characters, instead of Shamis and Isla, who I had in mind to be the first main characters. So yeah, things have changed already while writing this background story, but that's okay. That's okay. Well, I'll just see how it goes as I go along. So yeah, that's good. That's all playing out right now. And like I said, I did write something on New Year's Eve, but after that I didn't write anymore. I was just too tired, because of work, because that's still a very big issue. I'm still, for those who don't know, I'm still suffering from long COVID. So yeah, that's an issue. Oh, and for those who don't know me, I almost forgot. My name is Ilza. I am a magic-wielding dragon companion and creator of worlds, and here to help you with your story, on your Arthur journey, I should say. And today we do that with writing sprints and with chatting about writing. And I have a few writing prompts for you. Some are, at least one is very is from something very recent, and the rest could be seen as something from very recent, but might actually be very, very old. So you'll have to wait and see about that. So, without further ado, let's get started with our first writing session. Oh, hey, Sheena Kingdom. Please tell me if I pronounced that correctly. Shina Kingdom. I don't know. Welcome to the live stream. I'm very glad to see you join. And tell us a bit more about yourself and about your writing project before we move into the first live writing session. Um, if you how should I say that? For those who haven't quite read the description, I do writing sessions of 25 minutes, and then I have a short break, and then we will move on with another writing session. The short break might be just 5 minutes or just a few minutes, but it also might take longer if we start chatting about things about our stories, hurdles we found, or world building, for example. I mean, world building can be that's something we can talk about for hours on end. I can assure you that. And I often try to limit myself because I also want to do the writing sprints, but it's not always easy to do that. But yeah, we talk about all kinds of things, and those who are in my apologies, who are in the Discord know that about me. We have several things that we can talk about for hours on end. It's Zena. Okay, thank you. You're working on a fantasy novel, but today you're helping someone with research for his non-fiction book. Oh, wow. Oh, that's something completely different. And tell me about your fantasy novel and about his non-fiction book, because we're all always interested in what others are writing. I am always interested in what others are writing, and I know my viewers are also interested. So, what is your friend working on, and what is your fantasy novel about? Is it in what setting is it? I'm very curious. um, it's all so great. Yeah, Jess, it's interesting, right? Yeah. And these are. I mean, I don't see myself writing a non-fiction book. Let me say it. Let me say it this way. I don't see myself writing it right now. I know, and who knows what may happen in the future. But right now, it's all fantasy, and I mean, my world just simply won't let me do anything else. Well, I have to say my worlds, but because it's Tergaenae, but it's also Genema from the Genema Chronicles. That's my game, a video game I'm making, or yeah, I'm very slowly developing. But non-fiction, that's I don't know, or I'd have to really dive into something and have time to dive into something, I have to say, and write about that. And it would probably be something historical because that is what I like, or at some point in the future, something that has to do with writing, with world building, for example, or I don't know, any other subject about writing or game design or things like that. But at the moment, I don't see myself writing any non-fiction. Sena, you say the fantasy novel is about a person who made a contract with a dragon. Oh, now you got my interest. And the non-fiction is about some history in the Middle East. Oh, those can be very interesting as well. How far back does your friend go with the history? Is it recent history, or is it really ancient history from decades or centuries ago, I should say, or eons ago? I mean, the Middle East has so much history. Is so rich in history. I mean, it's older. Um, it's basically older than Europe, for example. So more than 1,000 years. Oh, that's incredible. So is your friend focusing on I should ask it differently. On what part of the Middle East is your friend focusing on, geographically speaking, or is it a culture or things like that? I have no idea. So many questions, no idea what to ask. um, but yeah, the Middle East it's incredible, and I think, but that's purely how I feel. I think the Middle East and the cultures and geographically, nature, etc., etc. These are all things that can be very inspirational also for fantasy worlds, and I think that is something that we should not forget when we are writing fantasy stories. There is so much more than just Europe. I mean, sure, Europe is old. It's more than 1,000 years old, or rather, several countries have a long, very long history. But Europe is not the oldest. I mean, there's, like, say, Middle East, Asia. These are all very, very old, older than Europe. I think older than several countries in Europe. And we can learn from the Middle East and from Asia. And also, of course, from African countries. And these are all things that can be very inspirational when you're writing a fantasy story. So yeah, Zaina, you say you won't spoil too much for now. Okay, okay. And yes, it's really interesting. Okay, well, I'm very much looking forward to hearing about it. Jess, she'll be right back. You're gonna get some tea. Tea is important. Well, I have my trusted hot cocoa with me, and I have my water with me. So yeah. Zena, you hope more fantasy would see more cultures in the future. Exactly. I mean, I've just restarted watching Game of Thrones because it's been quite a while. And you do see hints of vastly different cultures in there. Of course, that's a good thing, I think. Middle Earth with Lord of the Rings and and all the other stories that play in there has a totally different world. I think that's more, or essentially only, European based. But I think that it would be good, like you think, it would be good to have many more cultures covered in fantasy, and I hope that people will I don't know, recognize a few things in fantasy, or in Tergaenae Chronicles. I mean. One thing that always annoys me is that oftentimes, especially in movies and series from Hollywood, people from the Middle East and from Asia are oftentimes portrayed as the villains and things like that, and I don't like that. In my Tergaenae Chronicles, for example, a few of the people that I use as models for my characters, because I'm a bit visual, so I have models, actors, that are models for my characters, because that helps me. And they come from all over the world. They are from. I have a few Asian people. I have a few people from from Turkey, Morocco, Africa. So yeah, it's quite different, and they do not have a villainous role. Absolutely not. On the contrary, they are one of the main characters, or several of the main characters, I should say, and I think that's important. Then you say, "Wow, that's cool about your characters. Morocco is amazing." Yeah, I mean, it's these countries are so different from Europe, and at the same time, people seem to forget that we as Europeans, and that's going back centuries, we have learned so much from the Middle East, from Asia, and we should not forget that. And I mean, just because they have a different culture doesn't mean that their culture is bad. And I feel that oftentimes people, how shall I say that? People tend to forget that people from other countries, like people from Asia or from the Middle East or from Africa, or they might look upon our cultures in the same way or in a similar way as we look upon their cultures. Our cultures can be as strange as well to them, and at the same time, we have learned so much from them, and we forget that. Apparently, we forgot that, and we all, generally speaking, seem to think that everybody is the same, which is so far from the truth. And that is what I also hope to include in Tergaenae Chronicles, that that people are different, and that cultures are very very different, but that doesn't mean that they are bad. They can complement each other, and I think that's what is most important. Just welcome back. You acquired your tea. Excellent. Well, then I suggest that we get to our first writing session of 25 minutes. I have one writing prompt for you, and that is a medical writing prompt of sorts. Well, not of sorts, it is a medical writing prompt, which is inspired by something that was discovered last week here in the Netherlands, and that has everything to do with Corona and long COVID. In the Netherlands, medical researchers discovered, and they published it in Nature Communications last Thursday. They discovered a breakthrough in how long COVID works, or at least a little part of it. They discovered a breakthrough in why long COVID patients are so extremely tired after physical activities. And it turns out that people who have long COVID, and this is just a very summarized, paraphrased piece that I mean, I am in no way a medical researcher or whatever, but this is just the gist I got from the publication. Long COVID patients recover much slower, I should say, from physical activities than people without long COVID. And as it turns out, I have to think that I say it correctly. The muscle fibers is how they called it. The muscle fibers are damaged, and they are far more damaged than with a healthy person. after exercises, and it takes them very much longer to recover, and it also seems to have to do with the mitochondriacs, but whatever mitochondrion, um, essentially the energy factories in a cell, if I can put it that way, and apparently that is the cause, or at least it seems to be the cause at the moment, why long COVID patients are so extremely tired uh, after major exercise, and why they keep being so tired, and why they seem to get worse. Um, and I have experienced that myself, and I'm still experiencing that, unfortunately. Um, but it's a breakthrough. It doesn't mean that they already have a medicine or a treatment. Far from it, because now they have to find out why this process exactly is happening, what the cause of this process is, and once they have discovered that, then they can start looking for treatment or for medication to help people get through it. So, very selfishly spoken, I really hope that they manage to do that all in the first half year of this year, because I can really use that. Um, at the same time, I do want something that is good, and a treatment or medication that will help long COVID patients on the long run, and that will help them permanently and not just for a short time. So my writing prompt for you guys, with this as inspiration, is your character finds a medical research. It can be this research, it can be another research, but your character finds a medical research, and what does she or he do with it, and what does it have? I should say it correctly. Does it have any impact on him or her? And if so, what is the impact? And Zena, you say you keep meeting people from the Netherlands. Oh, that's great. Well, I'm very happy to meet you. It's wonderful. If I may ask, where are you from? I think I completely forgot to ask that. It's so fun to meet people from all over the world. It's great. Um, Let me check. I need to check one thing on my channel, because I noticed something. Yeah, okay, I can talk about that later. So that's great. So it is now 2:41 p.m. here in the Netherlands, and we're going to start our first writing session of the day. 25 minutes, and I will. Well, I just gave you the writing prompt. I wish you all good luck with it, and maybe you can use it, maybe you can't. I wish you all a lot of fun writing and researching, like you do, Zaina, researching for this historic fiction. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about that in the future. So be sure to keep us posted also in future live streams. I'd love to see you coming back, and maybe your friend as well. Um, so let's get to it. This time I did activate my clock or activated my timer, I should say. So we've got 25 minutes. Let's go. I wish you all I wish you all happy writing. I wanted to say, have fun. And that is the end of our first writing sprint of today. How did you guys do? I have to say that I am pretty satisfied with what I have written. Um, if you remember from previous times, and for those who don't remember or who hadn't heard about it any of it at all, Najat was injured, and he was not only injured but he was poisoned with a severe poison. So that poison worked through his body, and he is back in Dragon City. So yeah, he has been treated, or he was waiting for treatment, I should say. And he has gotten the treatment, and that is something that I will tell you guys about in a short while. But first, I want to see how you guys are all doing. Zena, you say you just scrolled up and things just non-thick is hard. Yeah, it is indeed. And you read 3 pages actually, but you accidentally reread 2 pages. You actually read 4 pages. 5 pages. Okay, I see. Well, as long as it was good information and it was beneficial to you, then it really doesn't matter that you reread 2 pages. It's great to hear that you managed to do that. And Jess, how have you been doing? How's your poetry writing going? It's all. I mean, poetry is another thing that I wouldn't see myself writing. It's not. I'm not a poet. I know I tried it. I think back in high school, and I don't know. All I know is it's not something for me. Um, I have no idea why, but it's not something that I'm attracted to, and or rather, at first glance, sometimes I see something of which I think, oh, that's beautiful, but I think maybe it's also because I maybe avoid poetry because in the past, especially in high school, when I had read poetry, I didn't like it. Oh, well, maybe it was because I was a teenager and I couldn't really appreciate it. I mean, we all know how teenagers are at that time when they have to read something because it's a school assignment and not something that you want to do. I mean, that's how we work as teenagers, I guess, or at least that's how I worked as a teenager. Um, but yeah, the poetry, it's not. I admire people who can write poetry and who can truly understand it and work with it and read it and understand it. But yeah, for me, it's not. How shall I say that? I don't know. It's not something you will find me write easily. No, I don't. I also don't think I will ever really start to write it. I might at some point in the future write something, but then it would be specifically for Tergaenae or for Genema. But at the moment, I don't see where I would need it. But you never know. Um, but yeah, it's incredible how people can do that. I really admire people who can do things that I simply cannot do. Things that like poetry that are just far beyond me. It's incredible. In my previous occupations, I did have to write non-fiction. I had to write policy pieces. And I mean, I know how to set up things, but that doesn't make it easier. Or rather, it doesn't make it fun. Let me put it that way. And perhaps it's because I wasn't properly invested in the subject, even though it was my job at the time. And even though I studied for it at the time, or before that, I studied at college for a traffic engineer. And I mean, that's far from what I do nowadays, but that's okay. I don't mind it. At the same time, it did give me the experience and the way of thinking that I need right now to properly set up my story and my videos and things like that. So yeah, that's a whole different ballgame. Um, and like I said, I might at some point in the future write a non-fic like Zena's friend. Um, but it would have to be something that I would be thoroughly interested in, like I don't know, a book about world building, or perhaps about the world of Tergaenae, which, well, in essence, becomes a fiction with that, but then it would be more describing the world of Tergaenae instead of writing the story of Tergaenae. So that will be a whole different ballgame. It is something that I have in mind to do at some point in the future, but not at the moment. At the moment, I'm way too busy with writing the story, writing the series, and completing world building where I need it, things like that. Um, so yeah, that's fun. Right, before I forget, I promised you guys that I would tell you about a new feature that I will have on my channel to help you keep on writing through the year. And I can now announce it because it is now on my channel announced. Starting tomorrow, I will do writing prompts Mondays, and those are videos, small videos with writing prompts to get you writing through the week. And tomorrow will be the premiere of the feature, and it will be at 3 p.m. Central European Time or Amsterdam time. And then you are also challenged to write a 500 to 1,000 short story, 500 to 1,000 words short story or scene, or whatever you feel like writing. And that's something new I came up with, and I hope you guys like it. Zena, you say nice. Oh, thank you, thank you. I'm happy to hear you glad you like it. I hope you guys will like the writing prompts I find. I try to make a variety of writing prompts so that there is something for everyone. I will also try to include some word prompts, writing prompts in the future for sci-fi and such. But at the same time, the writing prompts that I have used right now in the first video, which you can see as of tomorrow, are writing prompts that you can actually also, in one way or another, use in sci-fi stories. So I can advise you to use a wide interpretation of the writing prompts I give. So yeah, I hope you guys like it, and I hope that you can really use them to keep on writing throughout the year. I know it's not always easy to keep on writing, but as I progress through the year, I hope to finish, like I said earlier, to finish my my outline and to at least finish the first book. And the fun thing is, I may have not have been writing this last week, but I have listened to a few lectures of Brandon Sanderson. He's a fun guy to listen to. I might not agree on all parts of what he says, but he has a fun kind of humor. But one thing he says is that if you can write between 1,000 and 2,000 words per week, then essentially you can have written a novel in a year. Um, so yeah, that is something I really want to try this year. I mean, of course, NaNoWriMo in November is the big National Novel Writing Month event, and then you were supposed to write 50,000 words. But last year that plan went down the drain due to circumstances. But it's it is still a very good goal, and it's not, for me, it's not so much reaching that 50,000 words, it's making writing a habit, and seeing that I can complete the novel that I have in mind. And 50,000 words may help, or at least it will help getting me into a writing habit. So you say you listen to many of his lectures too, and yeah, although you don't agree with 100%, most of his tips and insights are very useful. Yeah, I find that as well, indeed. And you wrote 10,009 words, but you were way too busy in November. Yeah, that can happen. And you didn't really like those 10K words. Well, I can only advise you to keep those 10K words, and even though you didn't like them, they might be inspiration for another story, or inspiration for things that can happen in your story once you continue writing your story. It might help you do some world building if that is what was lacking, or some character development or story development, things like that. It's always important to keep what you have written, because you'll never know how you can use it in the future, even though you didn't like what you've written. Like right now, the piece I've written right now, or what I just finished, is something I am pretty happy with. But the piece that I wrote on New Year's Eve is something that I know I will rewrite, because I was absolutely not happy with that. But that's okay. I mean, it's not like this is my final draft. This is the first, or rather draft 0. This is my, like I explained in the Scrivener video, or in how to set up your fantasy project in Scrivener. This is my sandbox version, and my sandbox version is where I throw in all the events and the characters, and basically fill the sandbox with the sand that will make up my story as I go in the future. And then you say, yep, they're still in your Google Docs. Excellent, excellent. Keep in mind for Google Docs that there is a limit on how many characters you can actually keep in one document. I know one of my community members and my moderator here on YouTube, Dida, she ran into that limit, and later on I heard from several more people who ran into that limit. And at first you think, how can you run into that limit? Yeah, you can. I mean, it's incredible, but you can run into that limit. It depends on who you ask, but one says it's 500,000 words or characters. I'm not quite sure anymore. The next one says it's 1.2 million. It also might depend. It's also debatable. It might depend on if you pay for the storage or not. There are people who claim that they pay for the storage and can use more, while when they didn't pay for storage, they couldn't write so much. So there are limits to what you can do in Google Docs. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. And personally, I don't use Google Docs anymore for my writing, because there's also the knowledge at the moment that Google Docs or that Google might also um, scan your docs to maybe use it to train their large language models. At least that information was published last year. I don't know what the current status is of it, but that was for me another reason not to use Google Docs anymore for my writing, even though it was handy in the past. But yeah, those are all things to keep in mind and to consider. Zena, you ask, oh really? Oh wow. Usually you separate your docs because it gets laggy if it's too big. Yeah, that might be the reason. um, yeah, I know how that can go. In the past, I had also included, especially for example for Genema, for the Genema Chronicles, my game that I've been developing. I included inspirational photos and such in one document, in my game design document, and it became very large and, like you say, laggy. I mean, the more you include there in one document, the harder it becomes to keep things properly working. So yeah, let me grab something to drink for a while, for a moment, and then I will tell you guys about a little bit about how healing works in the world of Tergaenae. There's in the world of Tergaenae, there are healers and there are doctors. Doctors are how should I say that? Doctors do not have the healing skill. They are maybe a bit more like surgeons of old, and they can heal people, just like healers can. Well, no, not just like healers can, but they can heal people. Let me put it that way. Healers can heal people as well. It is oftentimes found that healers might be able to heal a patient better than a doctor can. But there's a downside at the same time, because healers, when they heal a patient, when they use their healing skills, I should say, to heal a patient, they will also inadvertently get access to a patient's thoughts and feelings, and, well, not so much thoughts, but memories and feelings, which can make it hard for the healer to focus on what she needs to do. And patients, if they are not trained well, or if they can't focus well enough, they might share things they would rather not share. So that's how the healing skill in Tergaenae works. And in this case, with Nejat being so sick, Rowena needs to use her healing skill in conjunction with, or in combination with, the antidote against the poison, because healers can heal a lot of things, but poison is not something they can heal just by using their healing skills. They do need the antidote, but their healing skills can strengthen the antidote so that a patient will get rid of the poison faster, and the antidote might be more effective. I do say might because it also depends on the patient himself or herself. So the healing skill works in different ways. Um, and in this case, with Najat, um, Rowena, that's the healer, asks Najat to focus on a good or pleasant memory, and because of the pain he is in and everything that he is experiencing, it is hard for him to focus. And in the end, his parabatai, Ruvark, and his brothers, Seamus and Finlay, and Finlay, help him. And funny enough, all three of them come with um, the same events that was on the edge of his memory, that was just starting to come out as something to focus on. So that was a good one. And they help him focus on that memory, and that in return helps Rowena again. Sena, you say that memory sharing has a lot of potential for emotional moments. Yes, it does. It's depending on how a healer deals with it. It can be an emotional moment at that moment, at that time that she is using the healing skill, or she can have those moments afterwards. I mean, doctors here just in our on our earth have that same can have that same well, I won't say connection, but a similar response when a patient is critically ill and is healed by a doctor. Um, the doctor may feel may really feel for the patient. Let me put it that way. And may feel emotional, especially afterwards when he or she has managed to save a patient who is really critically ill or critically injured or whatever, or the other way around can also happen, of course, when they lose a patient, and that can happen with the healers as well. So the healers, especially those who are extremely good, who have a very how should I say that? Let me rephrase it. Whose healing skill is very powerful. Um, they the more powerful they are, the more powerful their healing skill is, the more involuntarily access they have to the patient's memories and feelings. It is not something a healer chooses to do. They do not choose to access a patient's memories and feelings, but it's like they are bombarded with it. And healers who are that powerful are also trained to, in a certain way, block themselves. But at a certain level, it can also be a good thing to have a connection with a patient. If, for example, Rowena was supposed to treat a child who is critically injured, then having such a connection might help her. Having a connection on a certain level. I mean, she needs to be able to control it, but it can help her bring down the panic of a child and get the patient, the child, into a state that she can actually treat the patient. So it can work both ways. But if she is bombarded by all those memories and all those feelings, it can also overtake her. So that is why that training is important, and why especially the powerful healers are trained from the beginning, that they start to expose those skills. they are trained to block themselves, so that the chance that they are bombarded, that they are affected by the bombardment, to the point where they can't function anymore, that they can keep that at bay at most times. There are, or there can be moments, depending on the patient and depending on the kind of patient, where the patient involuntarily also accessed the memories of the healer. That doesn't happen often, luckily, because that brings a whole other risk. Let me put it that way. Because of course, a healer who has certain memories also has memories of how to heal things, and what might work and what might not work, and what treatment might work and what their experiences are with that treatment, etc., etc. And if a patient would have access to those memories, that might, how shall I say that? That might bring a patient down, because a healer might have experienced that she might not have been able to treat patients in the past with a similar injury or a similar illness, and that's hard. And if a patient would be able to access those memories involuntarily, that patient might lose hope of ever getting better again, of ever healing again. And that is, of course, a very dangerous moment. So, luckily enough, that doesn't happen often. I mean, that's those are very rare occasions. But yeah, it can happen. Luckily enough, here Najat is not able to do that. Especially seeing the fact that if he would have been able to do that, then I don't know if he would have had such a positive feeling. You never know. You never know. So yeah, like you said, Sena, memory sharing has potential for emotional moments. Indeed, it also has the potential for dangerous moments, because healers are also like our doctors here on Earth. Healers are supposed to heal everyone within their capacities, of course, but they are not supposed to make a difference between a criminal and an innocent child. If they treat a criminal, they might get access to memories a criminal might not want them to have access to. But it's involuntarily, especially if the criminal doesn't know how to stop that and doesn't know how to block. The healer might get access to memories about certain crimes, and that might become very explosive. That might become very dangerous for the healer at that moment. Imagine that a healer might get access to memories about a murder that hasn't been solved, and suddenly she heals this patient, and she finds out through his memories that he is actually the killer. Oh, well, then you have a very dangerous situation, because after all, that is not what this killer wants to be known. So that's a dangerous situation. And saying it like you say, oh yes, exactly, yeah, that's the other side of the healing skill. That is the downside, or the black side, or whatever you want to call it, of the healing skill. That is also something. Well, theme is a heavy word, but In Tergaenae Chronicles, skills, because healing skill is not the only skill, skills have have multiple sides. Skills have costs, and the access to the memories of others is one of the costs a healer has. One of the other costs is the energy it takes from the healer to heal someone with her healing skill. And especially the danger, I should rephrase that. It becomes especially dangerous when a healer gets lost in the memories of the patient and keeps using her healing skills when she doesn't quite have the energy anymore herself, because at that time she might start to drag the energy from the patient, because she is lost in those memories and she can't define anymore whose energy it is she is using. So instead of healing the patient, she might actually be taking the energy from that patient and thus making the patient worse. So that is also a downside of, or a dangerous side of the healing skill. And that is something you do involuntarily. Healers can also really go to the dark side and use their healing powers in a manipulative way, and also in a killing way. That is possible. It is for certain healers. It is possible to kill someone. So yeah, that's the dark side of the healing skills. And not only do healing skills have dark sides, basically all magical skills have good sides and dark sides. It's not either good or bad. It's something in between. There's this gray area, and that gray area is what is most important, because that is where the character comes into play, the personality of someone, their morals, their values. That is where these things become important, on how they use their healing, how they use their magical skills. And I think that is important to do with magical skills, because if magical skills were only good or only bad, that wouldn't take into account what a person can do. So yeah, that is how I make magical skills work in Tergaenae, or how I discovered magical skills worked in Tergaenae. That is, and how I describe it, how I understand it, how I describe it. So yeah, that's I think it may be different from other authors who use magical skills in their books. But I hope it's something people can, in a way, relate to. So yeah, that's it. That is a little explanation about the healing skill, how that works, or at least from what I have discovered so far. And Rowena, I have to say, is one of the most powerful healers in Natuan. Natuan is a continent. For those of you who don't know, Natuan is a continent in Tergaenae. And Rowena is a very powerful healing mage. One of the reasons why she is so powerful is because she has also a water skill, a water magic, I should say, that is elemental magic, but it is something. Elemental magic are magic skills that are not. It's not something someone has, but someone has access to the elemental magic. So that's different. Rowena has a good, very good access to the water skill, to the water magic. But there is someone who is even better than her. There is someone who is thrice blessed, but I can't tell you about her yet. She will come into play at some point. Not yet in this first book. But yeah, and also I almost forgot. Rowena is from originally has her. Let me rephrase that. Her family originates from the sea. Generations ago, her family originates from the sea people. So they naturally already have much more affinity with water magic, because in the past their family essentially lived in the water. But that's generations ago, a couple of centuries ago, several centuries ago, I should say. I think even eons ago, if I'm correct. They still have family living in the seas, in the oceans. So that is still active in a way, and it is something we will see in the later books. Not in this book. Not in this book. But that is a little bit about the healing skill, about how it works in Tergaenae. And we are now at 3:45 here in the Netherlands, which means it is time for another writing or research reading session of 25 minutes. So I hope that your stories flow and your poetry and your reading and everything else really flows, that your characters work with you instead of against you. I know how that last can be. I mean, my characters can have really a mind of their own, which is not always handy. They can claim things for their own, which I did not see coming, and they might just not reveal information that I really need. Things like that. They can be really, really very stubborn. Um, but yeah, I hope your characters work with you, and I wish you a lot of fun and happy writing with this next writing sprint. Let me start the clock and go. and I see you read 4 pages already. Excellent. You're doing great. I've now just started my outline for the series. I was at the point where Najat lost his conscience during the treatment, so that was an excellent point to now start the outline of the series. So yeah, that will be fun. But more about that later. Thank you. Yeah, it's fun to do. And that is the end of our word sprint. How did you guys do? Like I just already told very briefly, Najat lost his consciousness during his treatment. I mean, he's been in a lot of pain, and at some point that simply becomes too much. And I mean, the treatment isn't easy. He has been poisoned to the degree that everything in his body hurts, and even opening his eyes is something he can't do anymore because his eyelids are so swollen, and the lightest touch, like this on his skin, hurts like hell. So the poison has really worked its way through his body, and even though he is being treated at the moment, it will take quite a while before he will get better. And like oftentimes with treatments, things will go worse before things go better again. And in this case, things going worse means he lost his consciousness. He won't be on the brink of death. That won't happen. But it, I should say that won't happen with this poisoning. Let me put it that way, because Rowena was, or because he was back in Dragon City on time, and because Rowena was there. So that is his luck. Rowena is there. The Queen of the Small Folk is there, and has had contact with her, with one of her people who is excellent at her apothecary of sorts, who is excellent at finding antidotes, and he happened to have found an antidote against this poisoning a little while ago. So luckily enough, the recipe was already there, but they didn't know it yet. He is being treated. It's becoming too much for his body, so he has lost his consciousness. At that point, I thought, okay, I can keep on writing this, but this is also the excellent moment to now go working on my outline. I mean, he can stay unconscious for quite a while, as far as I care. No, that's not it. But I mean, there are two things I can do. I can keep on writing and just go with the flow. At the same time, I didn't exactly know where to continue to, because in the back of my mind, already the part of Naja, the earlier part of Naja, before she came to Dragon City, was already playing. Or I could finally start the outline of the entire series. And that is what I'm doing now, because there are several things that just won't leave the back of my mind, and I just need to get it on digital paper at the moment. Sena, you read 4 pages, you said earlier. That was excellent. And you said it was excellent that I started my outline. Thank you. And after reading, you just had some pizza. That sounds awesome. What kind of pizza did you have? I mean, to be honest, the only pizza I like is Hawaiian pizza, and that is the one with the cheese and the, what is it called in English again? Pineapple. Yes, I know people do not consider that a good pizza, but that's the only pizza I like, and probably because of all my allergies, mostly the only pizza I can have. Oh, you love pineapples on pizza as well. Oh, that's great to hear. That's great to hear. Someone who it's great to find someone who loves that as well. That's thank you for telling me that. I love it. Yeah, pizza is. I remember I made pizza with the eldest daughter of of my best friend here in the Netherlands. One of my best friends, and I had never made pizza, and she hadn't either. And I found a recipe for making pizzas from scratch, so we did that. And we were like, but that's not enough. I mean, we were supposed to have certain portions, and so we were like, that's never enough for all of us, because we were making pizza for not only the 2 of us, but also her mother and the boyfriend of her mother, and her siblings, 3 of them. So we were like, this is impossible. This is not enough. But you know what? We'll just see how it turns out. Well, as it turns out, we're not good at pizza making. We made the crust of the pizza was this thick. I'm telling you. And I mean, they tasted good. We used way more ingredients than we were supposed to use, and the pizzas, well, they tasted good, but yeah, they were really not good. So who knows? Maybe I will try to do it in the future again at some point. I remember we did it in the oven we didn't have that pizza thingy. I know there are now these little gadgets in which you can make small these tiny pizzas. So I might try it in the future again, but otherwise I'll just buy a pizza sometime again. um, I mean, those are good as well. Why not? Why not, right? So yeah, but tonight I will have chicken wings. I have no idea what I'm gonna eat with the chicken wings. I haven't decided on that yet, but I'll have chicken wings, which I got from the market last Thursday. And there's the oh, how do you call that in English? Let me find that. I don't know what it's called in English. The poulterer. We have a poulterer on the market, on the weekly market, and he has the most delicious chicken wings. They're all prepared, and all I need to do is just warm them up. I mean, they're all perfectly fine. So I just need to warm them up and nothing else. And so I'll just see what I'm in the mood for as a side dish for with the chicken wings. Zena, you like chicken wings as well? Ooh, great! That's great to hear. Um, I find it very funny to see people joining chats who like things I like as well. I love that. I really love that. Um, I mean, I may not be good at cooking certain things, but I do know what I like, and I can make chicken wings as well. I mean, that's not the point, but it's so much easier when someone has already done that, and all you need to do is simply warm it up in the oven or in your pan. I mean, what's easier than that, right? So, yeah, I started my outline for the series. I had been wondering how to start the series, or rather where to start the series. And in the end, I decided to start the series with Naja. She is one of the main characters, and I think the way that I'm now starting this series, the part where I'm starting it, and the things that I think I discovered that will happen in this part, will be one of the parts of the foundation for the whole story, for the whole development in the whole series. In the whole series, various parts will come together. It's not just one character or one couple that that is the main line. How shall I say that? Or their story is the main line. It's not just only their story. There are several things that will come together in the end, and then, well, I hope so. Things that I have discovered so far for the whole series are really, the way I see it, they are pillars of the entire story, and the pillars lead to the completeness of the entire story in the end. And even though it may not be, pillars, or I don't know. I mean, pillars hold up something, right? But here the pillars come together. There are several pillars coming together. So it's I don't know if pillars is the correct word, but for now I'll use pillars because I simply do not know the correct word, or haven't found the correct word, I should say. All the pillars together form the massive storyline, and that all comes to a conclusion in the last book. And I have already discovered how it will end, and I have already discovered several parts that are integral to the story. And writing this series and writing the outline of the series makes it more tangible. Is that a word? I think. And the fun part is when I discovered Naja and Najat, that was actually the moment that I thought, and that was sometime last year, I think. That was actually the moment that I thought, okay, now I know how the whole story, how the whole story comes together, and how it all works, and why things will work in the end as they will work, for as far as I discovered so far. And I found that a surprising discovery, because originally Naja and Najat were in no way part of the story. I mean, I hadn't discovered them. I hadn't. Originally, it was just Finlay and Shamis as the sons of the king, of the dragon companion's king. It was different. And when Naja and Najat came into the story, it all clicked together, and it was like, yes, now I have it. It took me years to find them. I have to admit that. It took me literally years, because I've been working on Tergaenae Chronicles for years already. I've been participating in NaNoWriMo, in the National Novel Writing Month in November, for years already with this story. It had other titles in the past. The Dragon Companions had other titles as well. But the way it is now, it's, to my surprise last year, this is what it all not boils down to. This is what was meant to be, and that's awesome. So now I get to write the outline of the complete series. I know that there are people who say, but who have the feeling that once they know how their story should end, that they don't want to write the story anymore. For me, even though I do have a pretty good idea of how my story will end, the main story parts are things I have discovered already, how those parts will end. Even though I already know that, the writing for me is the discovery of how everything goes, and how the characters evolve, and how the story evolves, and how the world evolves, because the world will be influenced by everything that happens in the Tergaenae Chronicles, in this series of the Tergaenae Chronicles. I've said that before in the past. And that is something that at some point in the future I will go into when I am going to make my world building course with my studio channel. The world is much bigger. The world of your story, in my case, the world of Tergaenae, is much bigger than only Natuan. Natuan is just one continent on which the story plays, on which this series plays. But I already know, for example, Naja and Najat also, they come from another continent. They come from different kingdoms on that other continent, but they come from another continent. I already know that in the future, in other books in the series, I will find other continents. I will find desert continents, because I know already there are people who will play a big role in the Tergaenae Chronicles. Will be from that Tergaenae, from the desert, from a city in the desert. So yeah. Zena, you ask, wow, is that spelled Najat? No, I'll spell it in chat. Wait a minute. Yeah, here. His name is Nejat. It's inspired by a Turkish name. What I saw in a Turkish series, and I kind of like that name, and I stick with it. Well, it's inspired by it because I know that it can be written in several ways, um, and it can also have different meanings. But yeah, Najat is for me. This is the way to use it, to spell it. So yeah. And Zena, you say, "Oh, all right, it's really good. Thank you, thank you." And it's this is one of the characters I spoke earlier about. He was the fun part is the name and the way the character is inspired by a Turkish series and a Turkish character in that series. The actor that I use as a model is a Chinese actor, or rather a Canadian Chinese, I think Canadian Chinese actor. So yeah, and Naja is inspired by, I think, also a Turkish series. The Magnificent. I'm at a loss for the name right now. Where one of the main characters is a girl who was kidnapped from Greece, I believe, centuries ago, and she was originally called Anastasia, and the Sultan, if I'm correct, calls her Naja at some point. That has a certain meaning. So that is how Naja came to be or came to the name, or how the name Naja came into Tergaenae. And here again, Naja, the name is inspired by this series, by this Turkish series, and the actress is a Chinese actress. But that is because I saw this actor of Naja that is a model for Najat, and this actress who is a model for Naja. I saw them play together in a Chinese series, and that was such a powerful combination that I just saw them as Naja and Najat. For me, there was just no question about that. Originally, I had for Najat I had and Naja also, by the way. For Najat I had the original Turkish actor in mind as a model, and for Naja I had the Turkish actress who played in the series with the Turkish actor. So not in the series from Naja, but in the other series from Najat. But I was never completely convinced of her being the good model for Naja. And when I found these two Chinese models, I just immediately saw Naja and Najat, and that was like, okay, this is perfect. And that is the beauty of having a fully fantasy series. You can just make it the way you want it to be, and that's one of the things I love about fantasy. It is you have so much freedom to make the world as you want, and to make it work the way you want to work it, the way you want to let it work. Let me put it that way. In this case, both Naja and Najat, like I said, Najat are from a southern continent, different kingdoms. Najat has quite the history behind him. I might tell about that later on at some point. But so does Naja. So they both have a history with their family, and it isn't an easy history. And well, that might, in one way or another, bring them together in a way. So yeah. Zane, you say that's really interesting. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's so um, the way it works for me. For me, it's always good to have an actor or a photo model or something as a model for my character, and um, it's how they, for me, it's how they act in, for the actors, for example, how they act in a series, how they can portray that. Um, and I see them do things, and of which I think, yeah, that's Naja, or that's Najat, or that's Ayla, or that's Shamis, or whomever, and I do it specifically for the main characters. I mean, I have so many side characters and world building extras and other extras. For me, that's I mean, all those extras. That's okay. I don't need a model. I don't need a model for it. If I happen to find a if I happen to find a model that's perfect for that side character, that's great. But I don't need a model for the side character. While it makes my writing much easier to have a model for my main characters. Um, it's also one of the reasons why I use photos of real places for for example, for Dragon City. Dragon City is built in a cave like the Han Sung Dung caves in Vietnam. Um, I saw that I saw videos and photos of that cave, and I thought that is what I had in mind. Um, it makes it so much more visual, but also it helps me to get a very clear picture of what I envision the world to be, um, and of what I envision the characters to be. So that really helps. Sena, you say a cave city is epic. Thank you. Yeah, it's incredible. For me, it's Dragon City is a city state, like in the movie Prince of Persia: Sands of Time. Um, they have I'm at a loss for the cities at the moment, but they have a city state. They have city states as well. Um, and I was inspired by that to not only have kingdoms, but also to have city states. And Dragon City is a city state. It's not a traditional kingdom. Um, you see that, for example, in the way that, or in the royalty, the hierarchy in Dragon City, the dragon companion's king has become a king because he had to fight for that role. It's literally a fight between the two strongest dragon companions. Um, Although it might be a bit different in the future, going through this series, but we'll see about that. So that works differently. It's not automatically that the eldest son of the dragon companion's king becomes the next dragon companion's king. So that works differently. And in the White City, for example, the White City is the city of the mages. And that's well, not on a mountain. I will show you guys a little bit more about that later on. But the mages haven't had a queen in centuries, and they will get a queen. Um, with all the other pigeons are doing their antics again. With all the consequences that brings with it. The queen, the mage queen, I mean. Um, and yeah, the cave city of Dragon City is it's kind of a combination of the Hanson Doom caves with what is it, Minas Tirith in Gondor. What is it in Middle Earth? Now I need to know. I think it's Gondor. I always get these two. Minas Tirith. I think it's Minas Tirith. Oh yeah, that is the same. Duh. Yeah, Minas Tirith. I kind of envisioned sorta a part of Minas Tirith inside Hanson Rune Caves, where the areas are inspired by the areas that you can find in the movie The Mortal Engines. And Dragon City has these dolmens, or whatever you want to call these cave-ins, in the ceiling, where the sunlight goes through, and where you find lush forests and gardens and such. And that makes Dragon City. But also there are layers in Dragon City. You have the main part of Dragon City. It's this huge city that is more near the ceiling of the cave. But you also have the lower places, the layers, and rivers flowing through the cave. So the cave is huge, but I love it. And it's also a lot of fun to imagine how the life in a cave can be, and how things can evolve there, and what you might see if you go into such a cave. And it's like you say, it's epic. It's epic. So yeah, that's Dragon City. Um, at one point in the future, I hope I will be able to make a 3D model of Dragon City in the Unreal Engine. But that will have to wait. For now, I need to finish this. I need to write this outline. Because there's so much that needs to come. And the fun part is, normally I write an outline in just key phrases and keywords, and now I find myself including all kinds of background information in the chapter description, of which I think, okay, this wasn't supposed to be in the outline. This is supposed to be somewhere else. But that's okay. I'll fix that later. For now, I'm writing this, and even though I know that certain information that is right now in the outline is supposed to be somewhere else, I need to write it down, and that is the most important thing. And there are things already. I mean, I've written just a little paragraph about the first chapter of the series, and there are already things that I now know that I need to foreshadow from the first chapter on till the end of the book, or to the end of the series. I just wrote a few things of which I thought, okay, this is complication. This means complications in so many ways. And that's just the start of the series. So I'm making I think I'm making my writing life a hell with this. But I'm convinced that it will make the story better, and that is all that matters. Um, there are things that I already see that I need to foreshadow that will have their influences on Naja and on Najat, but also on their relationships with their siblings and with their parents and the rest of the families. Um, this is, this is I don't know yet how this is going to end. So yeah. And Zena, how is the story going? Have you read anything after you had some pizza? And Jess, how are you doing? Are you still with us? And how is your poetry writing going? Um, I'm curious to hear about you all. And others who are watching but who haven't joined in yet in the chat, feel free to join in and let us know how your writing project is going. I always love to hear about that, and what you're working on, and what your plans are for the future in 2024. I'd love to hear that. And Zena, what are your plans for 2024 writing wise? And you say you didn't read anything, you think you will do some studying now. Okay, that's also great. Well, I think I will do one more writing session and then I'm gonna call it a day because it's getting close to dinner time here in the Netherlands and I'm starting to get hungry. So in half an hour or so, I will start the oven so that it can get warm for my chicken wings. I still need to decide what side dish I will have with my chicken wings. So right now I'm thinking baguettes. Oh damn, what's that called in English? I mean, I know the French word, but and obviously the Dutch word, but let me see. What is that called in English? Oh, a baguette. Okay, okay, they use the French word. That's fine. That's fine. So I have the choice: baguettes or rice. I'm not one for potatoes anymore. That's somehow my body doesn't agree with that anymore. Um, so potatoes or baguettes? Yeah, or potatoes. I say rice or baguettes. The baguette is already ready. I just need to warm it up. It's ready in the freezer, so I just need to warm it up. The rice I really need to cook. I might go for the baguette, just to have an easy evening of cooking. Um, yeah, I think I'll do that. I think I'll do that. Okay, so last writing session of today. After I have answered Zena. Zena, you say last year you had way too many projects and you indulged in too many random ideas. So in 2024, you decided to just have 3 projects: your fiction story, this non-fiction, and one commission story every 3 months. You also do commission stories. Oh my god, that's how do you do that? I mean, I already need all my energy and all my everything I can think of just for my own story. I can't even think of writing a story for someone else. Well, technically, of course, I am writing a story for someone else, but a commissioned story, no, that's something I can't imagine myself doing that. At least not right now. But 3 projects. That's wow. I admire you for doing that. Oh, you say there's short stories. Yeah, short stories aren't my thing. Poetry, that's something I mean, I don't know why that's not my thing. Short stories, I mean, from the start that I needed to write short stories at high school, I was never able to write a short story because in the end it just becomes longer and longer and longer. And I mean, just a little history of the Tergaenae Chronicles. It started as one book. Yeah. And then it became a trilogy, and then it became a quintet, and now I don't know how many books it will be. So, yeah, I really can't write a short story. I've never been able to do that. Zaina, you say it's hard to say all you want to say in just a few thousand words. Well, yeah, uh, that's exactly my problem. I mean, I start and I just can't stop writing, and I have so much more to tell, and so much more, so many characters, and so much more story to develop. There's simply no way I can write short stories. That's not my, that's that's not something that my mind can do. I mean, even when I wrote fan fiction, I wasn't able to write short stories. I simply wasn't able to do that. Um, I mean, and fan fiction is the ideal way, the ideal medium to write short stories, because everything is given, the characters, the world, everything is given. You can write a short story between episodes of TV series, or between chapters of a book, or between books. You don't need a very long story, but I was never able to write short stories even back then. So yeah, that's not in my DNA. I think short stories, that's, simply not in my DNA. I mean, I might write 2,000 words, which becomes a prelude to something else, and then becomes longer, and then it becomes longer, and yeah, just like prologues. Prologues, that's. I originally thought I would have a prologue with Tergaenae Chronicles, and in the end I said, okay, no, I'm not going to do that, because the prologue itself would become just a book, so there's no way I can write a prologue. I mean, it's not how my mind works. I admire people who can do that. I admire you for being able to write short stories. It's not how my mind works. It just, my mind just can't stop developing the story and developing the characters and everything. That's, I don't know. It's like world building. I start with one thing, and soon enough I will have a whole world, and it keeps evolving simply because my mind just simply doesn't stop evolving the world. And of course I keep on writing, and I keep on writing my outline. But the world building is always in the back of my mind, and I really have to be conscious of that, and I have to keep in mind that yes, I can do world building, but in the end I only need to do world building as much as my story needs the world building, and nothing more. Essentially it boils down to that. Or I think Brandon Sanderson said it in one of his early lectures. You need to build out only one thing very good, and that will be enough for the readers to believe that you have built out everything that way. Well, my mind simply builds out everything that way. I can't help that. That's how my mind works. But I mean, there are times that I just get this inkling of an idea, and I just jot it down, and it's like, okay, you know what? It's, who knows? Maybe I will do something with it at some point, or maybe I won't. And then weeks later or a month later, I haven't been consciously developing that idea, but then a month later I will have an idea of 10 pages long, and then it's like, okay, that wasn't supposed to be an idea. It wasn't just supposed to be a little detail that kind of meant nothing, and then it just 10 pages long. So that's kind of how my mind works. How my mind works. I mean, it just goes on at night, and when I'm asleep, it just goes on, and then at some point I just have something that's way too much for what I need. I mean, I just need a small detail on a building, and soon enough there's a whole culture behind that small detail on a building. for example, or a whole sect or cult or whatever. So yeah, that's I don't know why my mind works like that, but yeah, that's a problem. um, but in the end, it also can bring me things to make my story better. That's also the fun part of it. Um, but speaking about making stories better, I'm gonna do some more writing in my outline. So let's officially start the last writing sprint of today in this live stream. I wish you all a lot of fun writing and reading and researching and doing whatever you want to do, studying. Um, it's 25 minutes and then we're gonna call it a day. I wish you all a lot of fun. Happy writing, happy studying, happy doing whatever you want to do in these 25 minutes. Have fun. And that is the end of our last writing sprint of today. How did it all go for you all? I have to say, I had a lot to think about for this outline, but I'm not only describing what's going on in the chapter, but I'm also looking at bridge scenes towards the next chapter. Zena, you managed to do 9 questions. Wow, that's awesome work. Oh, you did 12. You did even better. That's wonderful. That's great to hear. What were you studying? I totally forgot to ask that. Oh, let me go back to here. Like I said, I'm in my outline. I use. I also look at the story structure, not only on what's happening in the chapters. Zena, you are studying microeconomics. Oh, that's interesting. Is that like the microeconomics in underdeveloped countries, or is it more like microtransactions in games, or microeconomics, for example, in a small city, or is it something completely different? I have all kinds of ideas about it, but I'd love to hear exactly what it is. I can imagine that can also be very interesting to study when you are writing a fantasy story, because in a fantasy story you also have economics at play, and it can all depend on how big a city is, but also how big the world is, and also things that go on in a world. In Tergaenae, for example, in Tergaenae, in Genema, for example, in future players will find that if they go to a desert planet or a rather large desert area, they may find that they do not really have use for the coins they have collected, but instead water is far more valuable as a trading resource there. So it's just a tiny thing in the economics of Genema. Zinnia says, so micro and macro are 2 parts of economics. Micro is on a firm level, while macro is on a country level. Ah, okay. And if you say, oh, okay, my next question is already answered. Micro is like supply and demand for goods, etc. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. That kind of refers to what I was just talking about with Tergaenae Chronicles, like people in the desert having more need of water instead of coins in the world of Genema, as a trading good. So players who go to that desert town or a desert planet should rather bring a lot of water if they want a certain thing in that desert town or from the desert planet, so that they can actually trade it instead of having to pay a lot of coins, because the coins are pretty much worthless in that town and on that planet. Yeah, each place might have. Zena, you say, yeah, each place might value different things due to environmental factors. They also might be richer in certain supplies. Exactly. Yeah, that's that's one of the things I have at work in the world of Genema in my game, and also in a small game that I'm also developing. I'm developing way too many projects. But yeah, it's exactly those things that you don't always need, or at least in my fantasy project, you don't always need coins to get goods. You can, I mean, the coins here on Earth, money, is something from several centuries ago, but way back when, um, we actually traded in goods and in services instead of coins. So that's a huge difference. Um, and I can imagine that even nowadays in some small villages, yeah, bartering indeed, yeah. And I can imagine that's still going on in some small villages and remote places, simply because they have no other way to get, no other means to get those goods. Yeah, it's interesting. It's fun to be able to look at economics in that way, and to study that really. And when you have finished this study, what would you like to do with it? What is your ideal job with this study? I mean, I know I'm far from my ideal job right now. I mean, I studied traffic engineer. I worked as a traffic engineer for about 10 years, give or take. And now I've been working as an interior cleaner for about almost 14 years. And of course, that's not an ideal job. Um, but yeah, Saina, like you, I want to be an author and I want to be a game developer. I want to make that a full-time job. Well, author, game developer, and I'd love to help people build their worlds and help people on their author journey. Those are really dreams of mine, and make my own games. Um, I have a small game in mind, but I also have a large game in mind. I'm beginning. I have to say it correctly. The large game is something that I've been developing on paper for years already. I simply didn't have the means to really make it into a game to code and build it. The small game is something I'm currently also developing. It's something I started developing last year. And that's just a small game. It's a kind of a mix, crossover, whatever you want to call it, between survival games and economics games, and a very small RPG, or a very small RPG game, multiplayer game. So that's gonna be interesting. As then you say, even among friends, we might barter in developed societies. Yes, exactly. And you're very interested in economics, so it can help with world building. Yes, yes, it certainly can help. Uh, I mean, I have no degree in economics or whatsoever, and I remember that I had a hard time studying that in high school. Both the general economics, how land economics work, and the technical part of the economics in a, well, no, I have to say that correctly. The technical part of the economics for a business. So the how do you call that? Uh, the accounts. Let me put it that way. Um, that was something I didn't have too many problems with, but the general economics, that wasn't easy for me. Um, well, we had two class, or one class actually, and we had two parts in that, and we were taught about the general economics. Key no, oh, what is it? I don't know anymore. It's where we got explained how the wave of economics works, and it really the basics of economics, but not much more. I mean, it's not like you study in college or in university. It's really the base of economics, and nothing more. Just to get an idea of what it would be and how it works, and how it works in a country, things like that. But we had, I think that was mandatory for everyone. I don't think we could choose that back then. I think it's a choice right now, but I don't remember how it was back then. Yeah, it's we learned. Let me see if I can find something about that. Mm, 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 no. Um, yeah, Keynes, John Maynard Keynes, I think. We learned about him. It's just it touched on a few things back in high school, but we didn't go very deep into it. But we touched on things just to get an idea. Yeah, Kinney's in economics indeed. Yes. Um, so it's like I said, it touched on things, but it's not like we went deep into all the subjects. We just learned just enough to get a basic understanding, and that was it. So yeah. Um, what I forgot to mention earlier on, we were talking about how it would be good to have other cultures also represented in fantasy, and where I said that oftentimes we see people from the Middle East or from Asia having villainous characters, or and one of the characters that I had another uh, Turkish, yeah, Turkish actor, um, who is a model for one of my characters, and he is the perfect model, and he I mean, at the moment I have the name Ömer. I might keep it because just I like the name Ömer. It is a Turkish name from a Turkish series. Yes, I'm very uh, you know, if I see a name or hear a name that I like, I mean, why wouldn't I use it? Um, but in my story in Tergaenae Chronicles, he has a good function. He has a good role. He's one of the good guys, and it's not that I chose him to be one of the good guys because I think that someone from the Middle East, someone from Turkey or whatever, should be a good guy. It's because I saw him and I just knew that he would be perfect for that role. I just saw it in front of me, and he happens to be Turkish. um, it's one of those moments where I just see someone and I just know instantly that this is the person. Um, as in, you say that's really cool. Oh, thank you. And can I tell you more about this character? Yeah, I can tell you more. Yeah, I don't think it will ruin too much. One of the this is a character who is a mage, and yes, he is a mage, and that's all I'm going to say about it. And then there's a whole story behind that, which everyone will read in the Tergaenae Chronicles. There's so much more behind the mages, but Omer is a mage, and I saw him. I saw this actor, and I just immediately saw the mage, the good guy mage, in him, and for me that was it was instantly, it was perfect. At the same time, I saw one of the soldiers who works at the place where I work, and I just immediately knew that she would be the model for one of my mages, one of the good mages, just because she's so different. She has a very dark skin, and I imagined her with blue eyes. She doesn't have. She has dark eyes, but I imagined her with blue eyes. But in real life, she has very expressive eyes, and that is what I envisioned for this character, for this particular mage. So I get my inspiration from all over the place. I mean, it's not just, it's everything. Zena, you visualize Turkish-inspired magic being very beautiful. So do I. So do I. And this is, at the moment I can't tell you a lot about it because that would give away too much. Yeah, that would give away too much. If I already tell you guys about how his magic works and what he can do with his magic, yeah, that's something for far into the future. So that I would really spoil things if I were to tell you guys about that right now. But let me just say, he can do things that might seemingly only have effects at first at a very small scale, but in the end it will have a far greater effect, even though people might not initially see that. That is one of the things I like about fantasy and about magic in fantasy. You can make it as limited as you want, and as you discover, but you can also discover that it is not limited. Well, in Tergaenae, magic is limited. In many ways, like I told earlier about the healing skill. The skill Omer has is also limited. It also has its limitations. Let me put it that way. But the way it looks and the way he uses it is not limited. That is. I currently do not have words for that, but it is great, and that's what I love about fantasy. You can make it so awesome, especially when you don't limit yourself to the culture you come from. I mean, I'm European born and raised. So of course I have a certain experience, certain life experience, but also experience from where I come from. But I feel that exactly in fantasy you have the opportunity, the best way to let all kinds of cultures come together and work together, and to be able to respect other cultures and include things from other cultures that are beautiful. And of course there are also things that are absolutely not beautiful, but that's the same in our own cultures. I mean, we see that happening here in the Netherlands, here in Europe, in the United States as well, in all other countries. Everyone can say from his or her own country what is beautiful and what is not. I mean, it's not that a country, that there's one country that's perfect. Absolutely not. I mean, the Netherlands isn't perfect at all, but we have beauties and beautiful things, and we have things that are rather not mentioned. And yeah, that's how it works. And um, I think that it is important to also have those things in fantasy stories, because it's not all black and white, and the same goes for cultures. It's not all black and white. um, Zena, you agree 100%? Ah, thank you. It's, I mean, that's why I think that is one of the main reasons why why I really love writing fantasy. I can combine so many things, and I can include so many things from other cultures in a hopefully respectful way. It's one of the reasons why I also want sensitivity readers on different cultures in the future for my books, and not only for um, different sexualities, but also different cultures, because it is important. I feel it is important that um, a culture that I include the information from, that it is represented correctly in my book, or well, maybe not correctly, but at least respectfully. I mean, it's if I decide to include a certain culture with a certain religion, or rather, if not include, but be inspired by a certain culture and a certain religion, it doesn't mean that exactly that culture and exactly that religion is included in my book. My Tergaenae is inspired by, but it doesn't mean that I shouldn't be respectful to that culture and to that religion, and that is what I feel is important. So yeah, I hope that people will recognize a few things, and hopefully appreciate it. That would be fun. Um, so this was the last writing sprint of today's live stream. Next live stream is coming Friday, 3 p.m. Central European Time, Amsterdam time. And I think I will continue, or rather, I expect I will continue with the outline. I hope to be further than I am right now. I am about to start writing a little piece about chapter 5 of the first book, of chapter 5 of the series, I should say. And like I said earlier, in my outline, I not only describe what should happen in a chapter, but I also look at a piece of the structure of the whole series. Like where I say that I need a bridge scene to a certain thing in the following chapter. So yeah, that's those are things I also include in my outline. Sina, you say thanks for the sprints and chats. You're welcome, and thank you for joining. I loved having you here, and I'd love to see you in the future as well. Keep us posted about your projects. I would love to hear more about them in the future, and about your short stories, if you are free to tell us about it. Of course, about your commissioned short stories and other short stories you write. I would love to hear about them. So I hope to see you in one of the next live streams. I do them every week. How shall I say it? Every week, if circumstances permit it. Basically, every week, every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European time. I had a lot of fun with you all, and I hope that you can keep on writing, and I hope that you find tomorrow's small video helpful in keeping on writing throughout the year, throughout this week, or later weeks. and I wish you all a lot of fun. Keep on writing, keep us posted on how things are going. If you would like any questions answered in future live streams, or topics talked about in future live streams, be sure to check the link in the description below. I've posted the link to the form for questions about it, and questions